Oh, hello. Emily Haynes here of This Yogi Dances. Welcome to, what day is today? Thursday, May 7th, Self Massage Hips Edition. It's finally here. Um, Sorry to have missed last week. That was a bit wild. Was not feeling very well. I need a little rest time. So just moving the computer back here so you can see. Sweet. Today, if you have a double ball situation like this, we can use a double ball situation as such. Or if you just have a singular tennis ball, lacrosse ball, whatever you have, get that. And then something for underneath the pelvis, just getting what I have here, a block. Or if you want to use a folded up blanket a few times, so it's a bit firm. Oh, see all the fuzz on my block here. It's real. Get yourself a folded up blanket. You could also use pillows, but the firmer, more stable, the better. If you're folding over a blanket, trying to get it to be about this size to go underneath the back of your pelvis. Okay. Let's come to a recline position wherever you want to be. If your low back is really tight, so maybe just a moment about the hips. So if your hips are really tight, your low back is really tight, like the low back could be your hips being tight, the hips being tight could be something further down the thigh. So we're going to kind of explore, we're not going to kind of, we will explore what's happening, maybe an inner thigh that might be affecting the hip. We'll explore a little bit in the back that might be affecting the hip or vice versa. Okay, so it's no real right or wrong answer when it comes to this stuff. Like, yes, your hip is hurting, then it must be this. That's not necessarily the case. Everyone's physical structure is different. How you sleep or where you keep your tension is different. Yeah, so let's do some exploration. So that being said, what I was going to say, it's been a minute since I've talked to people, so now the words are just coming out of my mouth all at once, all of the thoughts about what I want to do today. So bear with me. If your low back is really bothering you and laying flat on the floor is not comfortable, you can get a folding chair, scoot over to the edge of your couch. If you have a kitchen chair, bringing that over by your yoga mat, somehow getting your legs supported so the back of your knees are on something as we lay back and do some breath exploration into the belly. That will be helpful. Also, before I get to tell you, if you're tuning in and you don't know about 6:30 yoga happening Central Time, 6:30 yoga is going to be happening tonight, and I'm so excited because after this hip massage situation, we will be going into the hips with pose exploration during the yoga. So that's exciting. So wherever you're comfortable, side of couch, on your chair, flat on the back. If you're flat on the back, probably taking pelvis to the floor. Let me just adjust this a little bit more. Handstand canes are also the perfect spot for your computer to sit to film. So where you're comfortable with the back flat on the floor, and that doesn't mean that you're pushing the low back to the floor here. This is not really the point is getting the back flat to the floor. It's feeling your natural lumbar curve. So the pelvis supported on something, the legs supported on something if you need it. Let me take the hands to the belly. You can take the hands to the ribs, upper chest, but probably belly today here. We're going to try and fill our breath from the bottom to the top and not just expanding in the chest. So with your hands somewhere comfortable, probably on the belly, front of pelvis. Without changing anything about the breath. Just be here. Have a productive rest moment. There's so much that happens inside the pelvis and around the pelvis and hips. Being aware of the breath and where you're putting it, where you're holding tension, just takes practice. So being able to sit here, be with the body, allow the body to be heavy into the floor. So you're not holding yourself up away from the floor, you're allowing yourself to be supported. If your feet are on the floor and you need a little more extra support for the low back or the hips, you can wiggle the feet wide and take the knees in towards one another. Maybe even they knock knees together. Just for a few rounds of breath here, as you take an inhale, I love this visual that I heard the other day of filling a pitcher. So you don't fill a pitcher from the top, you fill a pitcher from the bottom. And then the water moves up. So on your inhale, maybe you just visualize it. Maybe you can feel three-dimensionally, not just from the front of the belly filling up to the rib cage. Maybe it meets the chest. And then exhale. See if you can exhale slower than your inhale. So if we were using a yogic term, visamavriti, unequal length breath. Filling from the base of the pelvis. Maybe you can feel the pelvic floor expand toward the feet. Maybe you feel the back of the pelvis, that sacroiliac joint, soften and widen towards your mat or the floor. So it's not just the front body moving towards the ceiling. It's the side body. It's the back body. Filling from the base of the torso. And then exhale, trying to take the exhale longer than the inhale and squeezing everything out at the bottom of the breath. Just taking a few here. Close the eyes if that feels good. Make sure there's space in between the teeth. Maybe even making sound with your breath. Whispering each sound. It's a sound if you put your ear up to a seashell. That rushing, almost wave-like sound. And if you find as you release here, maybe the low back softens toward the floor. Maybe you soften into your lumbar curve. That's okay. Take like 3 more full rounds of breath. See on your exhales, if there's anything in around the hip socket or the low back, the belly, the pelvic floor, inside the pelvic rim that could soften any more. As I did that, I personally noticed that my knees started to fall back towards neutral. That deep internal rotation of bringing the knees together is not super natural for my body, so being a little more neutral here, knees in line with hips, allows my hip socket to release. Take 1 more full round of breath. Exhale. Feel free to keep with that long lengthened breath here, especially as we get deeper into the hip. Let the knees flop to one side. Just notice if the shoulders want to come off the floor. Try to encourage shoulder back down to the floor. If the shoulder is really coming off the floor, get your block-like or blanket-like thing, put it underneath the knee, support here. And allow for external rotation. So if I'm twisting here to the right, my right leg externally rotates while my left leg internally rotates. And just notice what you feel. See if you can. So we're in a little bit of a twist here. If I can come back to neutral, unwinding the twist from the top of the spine. So my tailbone's not going to come in first. My rib cage starts to scoot back. My belly button starts to scooch in. My knees stay heavy. And see what you feel there. Easy, gentle release. And then do that on the other side. So I'm not tensing up around the hip to bring myself back to neutral, around the belly to bring myself back to neutral. I'm falling almost into a deeper twisting feeling to come back to neutral. As I come from the top of the spine to the tailbone to bring the knees back up. Allowing the knees to flop to the other side. Feel what you feel here. One side probably feels more open than the other. Notice what's happening in the eyes and the jaw, and even in your mind space. Take one more exhale here. And then again from the top of the spine. It's like the rib cage comes back. Ooh, I even feel so bad stuff opening there. Belly button comes back. Knees stay floppy. I don't tense up the thigh to bring it back in. Use the pelvis. I'm using a little bit of my elbow. Exhale to neutral. Maybe squeeze the feet in closer if that feels okay for the knees. Press the knees together. So now using body activation to see if we can release into the hip before we take some more palpating actions with the ball. Squeeze the thighs together. Now get rid of your lumbar curve. Pull the belly in. Press the low back to the floor and curve, like the tailbone could come to the ceiling, like you're doing a low ab exercise. And breathe here, squeeze the thighs together super hard. Exhale, squeeze harder, low back to floor. And then exhale, gently release. Let the lumbar curve come back, let the knees fall to neutral. 2 more times. Exhale, low back to the floor. Even a feeling of the ribs knitting towards the top of the pelvis, pubic bone reaching and pulling up towards the sternum, tailbone reaching long towards the knees. Squeeze the thighs together, and now both thighs are doing a little bit of internal rotation. Back of the pelvis to the floor, neck is easy, but thighs and belly do work. 3, 2, 1, exhale, release. Well, I'm noticing that one leg sticks in internal rotation more than the other. I've never felt that before. Just notice those things. Squeeze the legs together, press the low back to the floor. Most you squeeze this time. Tailbone reaches up, belly pulls in and down. The neck and the jaw are easy. Squeeze the thighs. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, release, and then flop the knees back to that first side and feel what you feel. So it's like the knees have little weights on them, especially visualize that as we start to come back through the spiral of the spine towards neutral. Hanging out here for another breath or 2 if you want to take. So if my legs are to the right, my right foot comes over top the left thigh, as long as that feels okay for the knee, maybe it helps that left thigh get closer to the floor. Breathe here, big inhale. Exhale. Note, I should have had us get a strap-like thing. We'll do that in a moment. Letting your rib cage come back to the center first. And you can even use your one of your free hands. So if my legs are to the right, I'm using my left hand to palpate the rib, pull it back towards the floor, come towards the belly button, come to the outer left hip, pull it back to the center. That's what allows my thighs to come back up, not my knees coming up first, and then flip to the other side. Feel what you feel here. And only taking the foot over top the knee if that feels okay for the knee joint itself. Breathe here. You can take small movements here of the pelvis, pressing it forward or releasing it back. Just noticing where you feel stretch and when. And then if taking the foot outside the thigh feels good, do that on this side. It's gotta feel okay for the knee. You can even get some fun IT band things going if you can really dig your heel into the outer part of the IT band. You can even do some strokes of your IT band as you're here, but again, that has to feel okay for the knee. Exhale, unwind. If you want to use legs to the left, right hand to the rib cage, This side seems so much easier to bring it to the floor more quickly. Palpate from the top down, knees come up last. And just hang out here. Find that neutral spine, that lumbar curve. You could slide a hand underneath the back, not forcing any amount of that. And take a long, full round of breath. Big inhale. Is there more space and freedom? Find the breath into the belly, into the pelvis. Okay. Move yourself to one side. Bring yourself up. And let's do this action of a straight leg first. Oh, and thank you for putting some likes in there, y'all. Appreciate it. Get a strap-like situation. So if you have a strap, great. I just happen to have a sweatshirt right there, so I'm going to use my sweatshirt. Even if your leg, I can make it a little bit of a stronger strap situation if I roll it around a couple times. Even if you can get your leg close to the face in a reclined hamstring opening moment, we're not going to do that today. So I'm going for a 90-degree angle, if possible, of my feet right above my knees, right above my pelvis if I'm laying on the floor. If that's not quite possible, you feel a lot of tailbone tuck and your low back pressing to the floor to get the leg to 90 degrees, take a bend in the knee. Okay, so the knees will then be like feet over seat, and the knees will be a little bit closer towards the face as you're laying on the back. So similar action of the spiral. Similar action of that spiral we just did, but now in a reclined, what you could call a hamstring opener, but that's not what we're going for. Oh, I was outside picking weeds, and apparently some came in with me. Cool, cool, cool. Bring your foot up over the seat. Bend the knee if you need to. Foot up over the seat. And just hang out here. Feel the weight of the thigh, of the whole leg. So if I squeeze my hip, this is going to be super slight. I feel my foot moving towards the sky. If I relax and release, did you see what happened to my spine too? Natural lumbar curve. And I feel, it's like a feeling of my outer hip as my glute releases, softening towards the floor and slightly away towards the face. And then my natural lumbar curve comes into play. It feels a little bit more hamstringy. It's okay, or different hamstringy. Maybe try it again. Squeeze your glute, maybe just a little bit. Can you squeeze like that high glute medius, and then exhale, soften it. Allow the hip to come back into the socket. Flex and flare the toes. Okay, super slow. So I have my strap-like thing around my right foot. I grab opposites. Super slow. I let the foot get heavy, but my hip stays to the floor. Foot get heavy. Eventually, I'm going to hit a place, and this just depends on how far it goes, depending on your IT band, outer hip. My hip will have to come off the floor. You might even feel that reverberate up the low back, so that low back release we're talking about to get into the hip, or vice versa. Slowly let the foot come to the floor and slowly come into your spiral. If you want a little bit more support, this twist feels like a lot, especially we haven't really moved the body too much. You can take your block-like thing and set it underneath your long extended foot so you get a little height. Then you can allow the chest to open up into that twist. Okay, so find what feels good here and breathe. A few full rounds of breath. Can you still breathe deep down into the pelvis, not just the rib cage? A little harder here in the twist, but not impossible because it's not a super deep twist. And then epically slow, slow motion human being. Can you get your shoulder blade to the floor if it's not already? I have an imaginary weight on my foot. Can I get my upper back to the floor? Thoracic spine, low thoracic spine, rib cage. My foot still stays across the body. I'm not tensing up the hip nor the low back. I could use my toes on my extended leg a little bit to help come back to the twist or out of the twist. And then last thing, back of the pelvis rolls. Ooh, yeah, there it is. Back of the pelvis rolls to the floor, outer hip comes to the floor, and then the foot comes back up over the hip socket. That should feel maybe intense, but most likely incredibly delicious. Take the knee into the chest, slide the foot to the floor. That side should feel very long and released. That pranic energy line open. Take the other side. So sometimes just like it doesn't take much. You don't need to do a super vigorous, intense practice. Maybe you can just be some self-massage. I'm finding weeds everywhere. Breathe it here. Maybe do that action of squeezing the glute. The feeling of the foot going probably closer to the ceiling. And I exhale, release the glute. The hip softens toward the floor, away from the face, and the thigh comes in, the foot comes closer to the body. You do that a couple times. This is definitely a side that holds more tension, gets a little bit more compressed. Most of us have a little bit of a variation in the length of our legs. For me, that allows this left leg to feel compressed. My left low back to feel usually more compressed. My psoas to do too much work. All right, pretty soon, my left leg is up. I hold on with the right arm. Foot right above the seat, not closer to the face. And then exhale, super slow. You can even take your free hand to that hip. Help it stay to the floor. And if there's a spot where you come into the twist here, the leg coming across the body, and you're like, wow, that feels really productive. Stay there for a moment. Breathe through it. And then sometime soon, no rush really. You're on your time. And especially if you watch this on playback, like feel free to push pause and stay with the juicy bits or do them again. Doing some of these things more than once can be really beneficial to releasing fascia that is super unhappy, tense, tight. Take a big inhale. Big exhale. Maybe one more. Again, if you need that lengthened foot that's coming across the body to be on some height, for this twist to feel available, and for the body to feel like it can relax into the twist, that's super important. That you're not pushing too far into something where the body goes, nope, we need to protect ourselves now, so everything needs to tense up. We are trying to do the opposite of that. Start to take your shoulder blade to the floor. Start to let mid-thoracic come to the floor. Maybe upper lumbar. Can you articulate mid-lumbar, sacral plate, back of pelvis? Then let the outer hip come to the floor. Then let the thigh articulate over the hip. Take a big inhale here. Exhale. Slide your strap-like thing off. Take the knee into the chest and then slide the foot long. Take a big inhale here. Big exhale. Hopefully both sides feel a little bit more fantastic. Let's hopefully make them even more fantastic. Roll onto one side, bring yourself up. I'm going to do, that was a lot of outer hip and outer thigh action, doing a little inner thigh, inner hip action. You'll want a height-like thing, most likely, to set your ball situation on. But before we do that, doing a similar position that we'll use here in a second, just on the floor. You might need some padding for this extended knee, sort of like a modified pigeon pose here. I have 90 and 90, 90, 90. My thigh is coming straight forward toward the front of my mat or my space. This thigh is going straight to the side. I might find that I lean over to one side pretty far, but what if I encourage this inner thigh, this space right here, or maybe I can put my hand, see my fingers underneath my thigh, and maybe I can bring the hips a little bit more level to the floor, and then just feel how that probably, for most human beings, unless you have some really intense internal hip rotation, that probably makes some action for the deep inner hip and maybe the inner thigh. Keep exhaling. If you need to go back and forth a few times, go back and forth a few times. But like, what if one day I could take my whole inner thigh to the floor? And it could be a thing where just structurally your hip socket just is never going to do that. So go to a range of motion that feels good. Probably pointing this back foot and not flexing it to make sure it's okay for the knee. And then keep trying to wait. So for me, it's my left hip. My left hip down to the floor. I'm going to turn towards that side leg any amount. Maybe I even hold on to that side leg, my pants, whatever I have. And see if I can soften, like I could lay my torso on the outer part of my thigh and just take this like really weird side forward fold. Breathe here. You might feel some things happening on the low back, your QL here on the right side if you're leaning to the left. And breathe. Big inhale. Notice if you're coming into this like side bend inner hip opening 90-90 action, if this left hip, if you're leaning to the left, is going back, or if you can keep the hip in line with the knee. It's a much different stretch than letting the hip drop back, like your sit bone would come to the floor. That's enough of that. Bring yourself up. Maybe extend that leg out, maybe flex and point the toes, maybe drop the seat to the floor and lift it back up. Before we do the other side, we're just gonna go all out and then come to our height. So any height, like if you have like a square couch ledge or something that you can put your ball situation on. I also have done, where is it? We have an ab roller thing. I put the ab roller dude on my inner thigh. Just anything that will give you a little pressure. If you don't have a rolly-like situation, you could use a block edge, the edge of a chair, the edge of your couch to like palpate and get into your inner thigh. So whatever you have. I'm gonna go give myself a gift and go a little bit higher than that low block height. I will come to, as long as this is comfortable. Please adjust for your body and your needs. I'm going to come to that leg that was in front, now is underneath my body. That leg that was to the side, I'm going to keep it to the side. For me, I like this in an extended position. I know some people find taking it in a bent leg position affords more opening here. So you're like a half straddle, half gate pose like situation. And I can just go back and forth. And the longer my support is, the more I can come up into the inner thigh. Things are probably going to get pretty real here in the inner thigh. So I suggest those long exhales. I don't know if you can see here with my shirt in the way, but I'm almost center of my thigh. But I can keep going and let the ball roll, just being sure I don't allow the ball to come off the edge of my height. And then my leg will probably flop down to the block, and that wouldn't feel so great. You can keep your standing knee more underneath your body by scooting it in as you slide to the side. You can adjust your height to come closer to the center of the pelvis to get higher up into the inner thigh. There are some things in my high inner thigh that need some pressure and release. It might be super slight. I have been noticing in this position, so if I reach my head and my chest towards the leg that's receiving the work, I find more pressure on the ball. If I go away, I find less pressure, but I also get this cool release here in psoas, low belly, hip flexor moment. So feel free to play with that here. We're going to stay here a few more moments. And then if you find a place where you're like, wow, that is where the productivity is happening, things are happening there, hang out and stay. Something like 5 counts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to gently come out the way that you came in. Wiggle it in. And then pause. Be with both knees on the floor. Be in like a little tabletop moment. And feel what you feel. And let's do the other side. I'm taking my left leg in front. You do your other leg 90 degrees out here from the pelvis. And I do that on the other side. Just taking a few more actions here. Woo. And then as you drop this floating hip to the floor, notice if the hip wants to come back. I don't know if you can see the difference here. Here's my ASIS bone. That kind of takes me into an internal twist. I want to stay sideways and drop the hip towards the floor. That might mean that my knee needs to scoot farther away from the center of my body. And then I feel more stretch here directly on my QL, my side body. More action on my deep inner thigh and deep inner hip. Take another breath or two here. If you're lifting the hip up and down, great. On this side, that does not feel good. Exhale. And then start to twist. The chest, like both shoulders, could come on either side of my thigh. I hold on to what I can hold on to. Maybe it's just my front foot. Maybe I'm more on the diagonal here instead of straight side. Do what you can do and breathe. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then start to set yourself up for pressure on the inner thigh. I took a medium height. I took my 2 balls in the way that they will roll. They won't really go this way, even though this would probably still feel like great pressure on my inner thigh. They're not going to roll in the way that my leg is going. So if I'm using something that can roll, I wish I could find that tab roller. I think it's in the other room. It's just like 2 large rollerblade wheels that feel pretty good and give me a good amount of height to get into the inner thigh. So set yourself up into this half gate pose, straddle-like position, and start to make your way into the side. If you have sides that are vastly different, the side that is much more open, maybe give it a little bit less. The side that is a bit more tense, maybe it gets an extra breath or 2. Breathe it out here. Notice if you are tight in different places on either side. And then take the torso from side to side if that feels good. Ooh, on this side, if I lean away, that is the business. Breathe. 5 counts to stay somewhere. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you need to stay there a little bit longer or come out super slow. I just found a new fun spot that I didn't know was there. 1 more breath, and then make your way out. To be pausing in your tabletop movement. Feel what you feel. Coming back into the outer hip. Okay, so since we're already at 34 minutes, I didn't imagine we were going to go this long because I added a couple exercises or 2. We're just going to take 1 rolly guy here. So again, back of pelvis. So sacral plate is in the center. And then right and left sides of my pelvis. There's a joint that happens here on the diagonal down towards your tailbone. I can put pressure here. I feel like it's better on a double ball situation like this, but please be very careful. Taking pressure on this bony plate can be too much, and it can be actually damaging to things that are happening there. If you want to take this to the wall and roll up and down the wall on the back of your sacrum, maybe that might be better than using your whole pelvic weight, your body weight, to find pressure. What we are going to do is come to this diagonal of booty, meat, and muscle, okay, right in here. So there's hip bone, sacroplate, where we keep most of our tension, okay? We'll roll on there. If you have a double stacked situation and you want to take them apart, that might be useful. If you want to keep them together, also useful. So coming back to laying reclined. And if the low back is, bothering you here, feet to the floor, you could even put one foot up on your couch here to take a little low back release, almost like legs up the wall. Lean the legs to one side like we did beginning of class, and then start to rock weight onto the ball and then off. And then here, you can use this time to find where the most productive place is. I can go farther down, like almost all the way adjacent to tailbone. I can come all the way up to upper outer hip. Actually, I think that is where this side needs some love. And then once you find the place where you're like, yeah, I want to stay there for a couple breaths and see what I can do. My knees coming to this side is a fair amount of pressure on this ball. You do not have to do that. You can keep the knees straight up. You can keep the knees away from the ball side of the body. Whatever you do, find the pressure that is your edge, not beyond your edge where things start to tense back up. We're trying to release around the ball and take some long exhales. Soften the jaw, soften the eyes. Breathe all the way down into the belly and the pelvis. And how's your intention here for how you're palpating and touching your body, how you're thinking about your body? Taking a loving touch here. Take one more long exhale. Take the knees back away from the ball side of the body. Take the ball out. Put both sides of the pelvis on the floor and feel what you feel. Exhale. So that hip should feel so much more open. Do it on the other side. So rocking, rolling the ball up and down on the diagonal. And come all the way adjacent to the tailbone. And take the knees all the way to the side or not. Find the place where you feel productive. You're like, oh, I didn't know that was living in my hip. Stay there, hang out, lean into pressure how you can. Just because you can get your knees to a side doesn't mean you've won anything or unlocked any achievement here of self-massage. Where do you feel? How does it feel? How can you use your breath to release? How can you soften the breath and fall into whatever is supporting the body? Your couch, the floor. One more big breath here. Bring yourself back to center, maybe knees coming last. Roll to the opposite side, take the ball out. Maybe just set hands, ball to the side or ball onto belly, hands to belly, feet to floor or up on your couch or chair, what have you. Get supported. 3 long belly breaths here. Fill yourself up from the base of the pelvis. Exhale, can you release the breath from the top down? Squeeze out, hold out the breath. Pull the belly in slightly and then release on your inhale. Did that allow release anywhere in the mind or even around the base of the pelvis, the back of the pelvis? So you took that squeeze, exhale, hold it out, and then inhale, release. Last one, full exhale. If you want to stay here, hang out here, take some more breaths, reclined here on your back. You want to return to some of the exercises that we did today. Anytime, if you're watching this back again, if you want to pause, rewind, or pause and do a couple exercises 2-3 times, that's a thing. Do that for yourself. Take that time for yourself. But yeah, that concludes our self-massage for today, the hip edition. There's a bajillion and one things that we can do with the hip, so we'll probably continue to cycle through body parts and ways that we can access some release and massage. But please stick around, come take 6:30 yoga. That'll also be up on the page for you to watch and do at a later time if you can't do it tonight live. But I would love that. It would be so cool if we could practice together at the same time. And if you want to donate, if you can, This Yogi Dances on all platforms, PayPal, Venmo, and CashApp. Or if you could share, like, subscribe, please, that would mean a lot. I want to grow this online community and what I can continue to offer you. So thanks so much. And Charlie will probably, I'm sure, be here for yoga because somehow he always knows when it's meditation time. So thank y'all.